employee number 3 at Revolut. When did you realize that place was different?
Yeah, so I realized it was different when I first applied to Revolut. Nikolai responded within 5 minutes, and then he asked me to come in for a face-to-face interview the next day. And then during the interview, he asked me a bunch of physics questions. I was like, okay.
Were you applying for a physics job?
No, I was not. I was like, okay, what's this guy asking me all about physics questions? Because I studied physics at uni. He also studied physics. So I thought he was, he thought it was relevant. And then he offered me a job right after the interview. I was like totally shocked about the speed. And he asked me like, when can I start? So I got back to him the next day and told him I can start on Monday. So that was that.
That's when it just took off, and you realized this guy was moving at sort of a different speed.
Yeah, that's when I realized he's one step above everyone else.
And when did you start to realize that the company itself was on a just different trajectory from the other businesses that you'd maybe consider joining?
Yeah, so when I joined at the time, I thought, okay, I'll give this company maybe 3 months and see how that goes. So Revolut at the time was in a startup accelerator with maybe over 200 startups in the co-working space, and the Revolut team was the only team that worked past 7 p.m. And worked on weekends. So I thought, okay, this is something special.
Yeah, you guys are going places.
Yeah, so I decided to stay for 7 years.
All right, so fast forward 7 years, you've risen up the ranks. You're the chief revenue officer.
Yeah.
One of the fastest and most exciting companies in the entire world.
Yeah.
Things are looking up.
Yeah.
And you leave.
Yeah.
To go work on energy.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, so I think for me, I always like to solve like big, complex problems. And at the time, Revolut was already profitable, is making over $1 billion revenue. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably not that needed here. So what is like the next biggest problem, right? So I've been looking around, and energy appealed to me because, if you look at energy generation per capita across UK, Europe, it's gone down from the last 25 years gone down by 10 to 30%, right? And in US is basically flat, right? It hasn't grown at all. Whereas the same period in China has gone up by 7 times. Also, energy prices in Europe's one of the highest in the world, and energy prices are also going more volatile, right? So like everything that is and energy is like the fundamental building block of a healthy economy. And everything is just going the wrong direction. And I looked around and looked at different energy companies. I was like, oh, surely someone must be solving this. And I couldn't find a single company that I respected, right, within energy space. So I thought, okay, maybe I can take a shot at this.
So what are you doing at Fuse to fix some of these problems?
Yeah, so we're basically taking the whole full stack approach. So anywhere from building utility scale generation, all the way to energy retail and everything between. So we have, for example, a projects engineering team, mostly ex-SpaceX and Tesla engineers that build generation from scratch. And we actually own and operate these solar generation. And we're able to build it 30% cheaper on a per kilowatt hour basis, just because we build everything in-house. So all in all, like our goal is to pull every single lever possible to lower the cost per kilowatt hour.
You talked about the early days at Revolut, where hiring decisions were made on the fly. You started the next day. People were staying late, working weekends. What were some of the lessons from those early days that you tried to port over at Fuse to make sure that you were setting the company up to scale for the long term?
Yeah, so I would say the key thing I learned is like hiring very, very smart people who are very ambitious, highly technical, high IQ, that have tremendous work ethic, right? I think that's gets you 80% there. And that's exactly the lesson I took to Fuse, right? So we've assembled a great team, from software engineers, from top HFTs, all the way to projects engineers from Tesla, SpaceX, and Boeing.
It's an incredible team you've put together. And in the early days, maybe as much as you were built to scale, there were things outside of your control that were throttling some of your speed. So you decided to take things into your own hands. Can you talk about organizationally some of the steps that were required to get the team moving as fast as possible?
Yeah, so one of the things we did before we launched a product 2.5 years ago. Our product launch was delayed by already 2 months. So I told the whole company we need to go hardcore mode.
Hardcore mode.
Yeah,
what does that
hardcore
mean?
mode. That means no holidays until we launch.
All right. When did you exit hardcore mode?
So the company exited hardcore mode like 2 months after the product launch.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I'm still in hardcore mode.
All right. Well, I feel like you're always in hardcore mode. Okay, so you launched the product a couple years ago, just a little over 2 years ago. How's it going?
Yeah, so it's going pretty well, I guess.
Yeah.
So we hit 3 million revenue run rate a couple months ago. Our revenue is consistently since launch grown 10x every year on year.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, pretty well. 10x growth in 12 months, $200 million in revenue. Classic understated Alan. It feels like every time I get an update from the company, I feel like I'm looking at one of those movies with fighter pilots that are going at crazy G-forces and the skin is like ripping off their faces. What does it feel like inside when you grow that quickly in the span of such a short period of time?
I mean, to be honest, like I think internally our view is still we're not moving fast enough. It feels pretty slow.
Yeah.
And I always remind our team like we need not only we need to be number one, but we need to be best versions of ourselves. And I'll say we're not there yet, and we need to keep pushing.
Well, one of the ways in which you do stand out, and this is a stat that just blew my mind, is that you're capturing like 70% of the switchers when they're choosing which energy utility to go with. 70% are coming over to Fuse. Why do you think so many customers, such a dominant share, are choosing to come over to you guys?
Yeah, like ultimately, like what people care about is like low costs, great product, and customer service. Like in terms of costs, like people save 250 euros a year with us on average. In terms of product, we have the best design compared to any other energy company. And we're the only energy company that offers 24/7 support, right? So we win on all 3 dimensions. So I think we're a no-brainer choice. So I'm actually sad it's not 100%.
I appreciate the standards you hold yourselves to. Along the way, like some things have gone better than expected, some things have been different than expected. What has surprised you most over the last couple years about trying to put together the team and going after this opportunity?
Yeah, so ultimately, like what top people care about is responsibility, they have for the role, the impact they have on the on the company, but also like outside the company in terms of economic and social impact, comp, and working with other great people, right? And often when you choose like which company to work for, it's kind of like a 4 choose 2, maybe in a better scenario like 4 choose 3 situation. Mm-hmm. Like with us, it's actually 4 choose 4, right? You don't have to, have a trade-off. Okay, like maybe I make more money, but I sell my soul, to maybe the traditional finance industry, right? So it's like a 4 choose 4 situation. So it's been actually surprisingly easy, right? Easier than I thought to convince really, really great engineers to join the company.
One of the things we found at Lowercarbon Capital across a whole portfolio of companies that are working to increase available energy and materials for not just the humans, but the machines also, without strip mining the whole planet, is that a lot of people are attracted to this work. They want to come do the hard work of rebuilding the industrial and energy base of the countries that we live in. And they see it as much of an act of service as a professional obligation. Is that some of the experience you've had trying to bring people from high-frequency trading desks or other fast-growing startups into Fuse?
Yeah, for sure, right? So imagine if you're like a software engineer at a big tech or HFT, right? You're making a lot of money, but a lot of them are just like very bored at the job and don't feel like they're making a meaningful impact. But at the same time, all the other alternatives don't pay that well, right? So, yeah, I think providing that opportunity for those engineers, and I see like a big part of my role is to convince these very, very smart people to work on more important problems, right? Because ultimately, like, there are more important things than running A/B tests to make, help big tech make a little bit more money, right? Or, making the HFT bosses, a couple more billion, right? I think that's my job to convince these engineers to work on more important problems.
It's one of the interesting insights of giving people incredible work to work on because you don't let them do anything else. I noticed that one of the things about the Fuse offices is you're in Canary Wharf in London, and when I asked Alan once, how come you chose to be in Canary Wharf? His answer was, so that when people look out the window, they're not tempted to want to go do anything, and they just want to stay at their desks and keep working. So it's not a culture that stands out for the extravagant perks of working at the company. You have to give people something that feels meaningful. As you think about continuing to expand, especially going into new markets, how does that influence how you think about growing the team? Are you going to have Fuse offices in 17 different places?
Yeah, so ultimately we want to build offices where the talent is, right? So, I think London is a great location for us because, like, obviously, like, a lot of engineers want to live and work there. But yeah, our plan is to build offices in the US, across Europe, Asia, where engineers want to live and work.
One of the interesting things about how you've grown the business over the last few years is that you've focused from day one on what would be required when you started to really inflect and have a lot of scale on your customer base and how much energy you were trading and how much energy you were delivering to customers. Now you're sort of there, but your team hasn't had to like 10x over the last year. Can you talk a little bit about some of the steps you took early on from an organizational design standpoint to make that possible?
Yeah. So ultimately, I'm a big believer in like engineering-led organizations because ultimately it's the engineers that build the product. So our structure we have is basically we give engineers end-to-end ownership. So from gathering requirements all the way to implementation to QA, they basically have ownership across the whole process. They even have heavy input into the product design as well. So we don't have PMs in the company. If you want to call myself a PM, I'm the sole PM in the company. So yeah, we basically rather than paying the PMs and engineers a little bit less, we took the money that we would have invested in PMs and gave the engineers a little bit more money. And that's how we attract the best engineers as well.
And when you say engineers, obviously, we're talking about software engineers, but those are not the only kinds of engineers that you're hiring at Fuse because you're not just building a software product or even an energy trading product. You're building actual solar power plants, greenfield. Talk a little bit about how it's been to attract some of those people to come work in the business, because you're taking a very different approach from how most people would think about building solar, just outsourcing it to an EPC to get the job done.
Yeah, so we ultimately we want to assemble, engineers want to build things, right? Whether it's software engineers or projects engineers, they want to build things and they want to build a lot of things, right? And effectively our job, right? My job is to make sure they can build as much as they want, as long as it economically makes sense, and basically, help them unblock, remove barriers so they can build faster, right? And capital should never be a constraint, and whatever external blocker, I'll help them unblock and so they can build faster. So, yeah, that's how we attract the best, software and projects engineers.
One of the notable things is that when you went out to build that first solar power plant, because you're doing energy generation as well as obviously selling and trading of the power, you didn't go with a traditional EPC, and you still managed to significantly reduce the cost, which surprises a lot of people because solar power plants are not the sort of thing that it seemed like there was a lot of room to optimize still. And yet you found a lot of room to optimize. What organizationally did you have to do to make sure that the team was able to pull that off?
Yeah, it's quite simple, right? So typically a solar power plant, there are 3 to 10 companies involved in building it. we just did it all in one small team, right? And they did end-to-end execution. So we just did better engineering design. We did better construction project management. That allowed to save, basically 30% on the capex.
And for everything that's happening out in the real world, you're also thinking a lot about how to integrate AI into the all aspects of the business, from the back end to the piece that touches customers. Can you talk a little bit about how it's creating some real leverage for you as you begin to scale the business?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously within engineering, everyone uses, software engineering uses like Claude Code to build software. We also use a lot of AI on non-engineering as well. And we also use a lot of AI in energy hedging. So all our demand forecasting, as well as production forecasting, we use AI for that. And we also have plans to deploy AI into the consumer product. So everything within the consumer product will be AI first.
Very cool. Alan, I think today, someone looking from the outside that maybe wasn't as familiar with all of the different verticals within the business would look at Fuse and say, hey, this is an energy Gen Taylor in the UK, which wouldn't be totally unfair, but that's not the end of the ambitions that you have for the business. We've had some late night conversations that go into many different directions. And in the fullness of time, I have so much confidence in you to hit all of them. But 5 years from now, the same person looking at the business from the outside, how would their description of Fuse change based on what you think you'll be able to bring forward?
Yeah. So I would say in 5 years, we'll be in 30 markets, with a fully integrated energy business, lowering energy costs for consumers and businesses, as well as industries, and also deployed gigawatts of solar, as well as investing R&D into new technologies like nuclear fusion as well.
Very cool. One of the aspects that is different about Fuse and so many other fast-growing startups is you're not just in the process creating these amazing opportunities for your customers and consumers who are getting cheaper energy and better services across the board. You're also creating much better opportunities for workforces that don't typically get to participate in the explosive growth and upside of startups. Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like to hire electricians and plumbers to work on the installation side of the business, and how the equation shifts for them working at Fuse than working at the traditional small businesses that they would be part of?
Yeah, for sure. So we sell installations across smart meters, EV chargers, batteries, and solar. And we have built a optimizer that solves the effectively traveling salesman problem, that allows that calculates a route for electricians every single day and ensure the highest utilization and minimizing commute time and idle time. So our utilization is roughly 2 times better than the industry median. And effectively what we do is we try to hire the best electricians we can find. And effectively, they also get a bonus for every additional installations they do. So a lot of the ambitious, hardworking electricians actually make a lot more money with us than with other installation companies. And actually, because we are much more efficient on the utilization side, that allows our customers to enjoy much lower cost installations that are typically 1/3 cheaper than everyone else. So it's both lower, higher paying jobs for electricians, lower cost for consumers, as well as making more profit for the company, right? So I think it's
So win-win-win.
Yeah, win-win, yeah.
Talk us through a little bit what it's like to book those jobs as a consumer. I recently had an EV charger installed in my home. I live in LA, and it was sort of an ordeal. I had to look up and Google a bunch of different suppliers, called them all. Yeah. I got callbacks from about 1/3 of them.
Yeah.
The prices ranged from X to about 5X. Yeah. I had no ability to really discern. That's not a great opportunity for as a consumer. Doesn't feel awesome. The experience on Fuse is different. Talk to me a little about the mindset you guys went into and the experience that you wanted to be able to offer your energy subscribers when they install smart chargers.
Yeah, to get an EV charger, the experience is very much like ordering food on Uber Eats, right? It takes about 3 minutes, and then electrician shows at your door and does the installation. And we provide the lowest costs in the market.
And what's that translated to? Because I see if I go look at the reviews and when we're looking at the business, we're trying to figure out all these things you're saying, are they true? Do consumers really feel it? And your Trustpilot scores are through the roof, which is awesome. But what's the kind of feedback you get from consumers? What else are they asking you for? I mean, it feels like at this point, they're going to want anything that you can offer, they're going to want to buy. Is that the reaction you're starting to get?
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, consumers are starting to ask us for example, home services. So next year, we're going to build a product where I can take a picture, a photo, or video of something wrong with my house. Let's say my boiler is not working, and then initially AI will do initial diagnostics, and maybe sometimes as simple as switch it off and switch it on again, right? Now, if AI can't solve it, you can press the button and get an electrician or plumber to come to your home and fix it for you.
Exciting times. Well, these are some of the ways in which you're already starting to change the daily experiences of your customers, of the electricians that you're partnering with, obviously of your team. I want to take a little bit of a step back and think about where Fuse goes in the long run and how the world changes when you succeed. One of the things that is so empowering about the work that we get to do with companies like yours is partnering with teams that offer a fundamentally different vision of the future. And sometimes when people think about sustainability, the first place their minds goes to is changing their diets, changing how they travel, living in smaller homes, cutting back on their energy. And fundamentally, asking people to shrink their lives is not a super compelling pitch. In some ways, it's what we think of as the original sin in the sort of sustainability and climate movements. And we want to offer people a different direction. How can we give them more without consuming, and while consuming less? And this is a big part of the future that we envision. But that future gets built up bit by bit, company by company. And in your case, you're addressing such a big problem in the lives of everyone on Earth, which is how do we get more consumable energy and use it to enrich people's lives? So talk to me a little bit about how you see the world changing when you succeed. What are the second and third order effects of the Fuse that you envision in your mind's eye?
Yeah, so everything in the world runs on power, right? If you think about electrification, AI, it runs on a lot of power. And a lot of the green movement in the past have been using less, as you said. We don't think that's a very good future to have, right? Everyone should be using more, right? It's now become a meme at this point, which is there's no such thing as a rich country that uses very little energy, right? There's a very strong correlation between energy use and how wealthy the country is. So I think everyone should be using more energy, whether it's your consumer or business, and it's our job to make sure energy is abundant and cheap, so you don't ever have to think about energy again, right? So whether it's low-cost AI or low-cost drugs, or low-cost food, whatever that may be, this is the future we want to build towards.
That's such an expansive vision for the team at Fuse. Talk to me a little bit about how that will change the types of partners that you're working with, the types of people that you're recruiting into the business, and over time, how you will preserve the culture that you've built as Fuse expands across geographies and new markets and new offices.
Yeah, for me, it's very simple, right? If you're ambitious, technical, want to solve one of the biggest challenges in the world, come join us.
Well, amazing. On that note, Alan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.